next angle, and we talk about this when you and I do bet on it with Kelly all the time in football season, that sometimes you can lose the same game twice. I like to fade teams that had a big effort and came up short. Well, that is Minnesota. Look at their last game. They played on the road at Illinois, and they were getting double digits in that game, plus 12. Well, it turned out to be an absolute track meet. They ended up losing in a shootout. They stayed with them the entire game, 105-97, losing by 8, but easily covering the dozen point spread there. Now, people are going to look and say, wow, 97 points in a loss. Coming back home, they're an automatic bounce back candidate. No, I'm not going with that. You have the old carryover effect. Lose the same game twice. I think they're going to come out, be a little flat after that. Penn State in the first meeting. And then here's one that people don't talk about a lot, and I really do like this in all sports late in the season. What's the record of Penn State? They're 14-15 straight up. Okay, what's the big deal about that? Well, they're one game under 500. And mentally, that is such a big motivator. You got a chance to get to 500 late in the season. You want to do that. Nobody wants to be a losing team. So we got them with the revenge angle. We got Minnesota coming off a barn burner. And then we've got the motivation of Penn State trying to get to 500, and we're getting points. I'm going to go ahead and look to take Penn State in this one. And how about that first meeting? Minnesota won that game by 9 points. You know what the difference was in that game? They had 10 more points from the foul line than Penn State did. Let's look for that to balance out today. I'm going to go ahead and take Penn State plus the points here as our first free play for last call.
It's first call, Marco, for those on the West Coast. I don't know if you heard that there. All right, so screw you and your ATS record, Minnesota. Penn State taking the points here in that game coming up tonight in some Big Ten action. And, of course, if you're just joining us here across the platforms, YouTube Shorts, Facebook, Twitter, or any of the platforms, Instagram as well. Big shout out, guys. Drop any questions about the games that you may have here today. Loaded slate and college hoops. We got Ronald Cabang coming up. He's going to talk some NBA action, and we've got plenty of that too to break down, including my Miami Heat. Looking forward to seeing what he's got to say about that game coming up here today. But Marco, you're going to take on a game here that this team is, you got to be careful because they have been absolute money as well. I think it's 13 in a row for the South Florida Bulls, but they're taking on Charlotte, and Charlotte, big surprise this year as well. This is a battle. That should be a fun game, but what are we looking at? 3.5, 4 points maybe for Charlotte? What are you going to do in this game?
Yeah, there's still some 3.5s out there, but this line is definitely heading to the 4s across the board. So I'm taking Charlotte. Listen to the analysis, but grab the 3.5 right now while you can get it, because it won't be there for long. South Florida, full disclosure, they have been an absolute pain in my big butt all year long, okay? They keep defying the odds, and I'm going to do it one last time. And there's some things a little different about today's game than it's been the rest of the year. All season long, when you look at these lines with South Florida, I got to scratch my head and say, okay, I look at their record and I look at what Vegas is setting the number at, and it just looks fishy. And yet, South Florida still finds a way to win. Well, today they're doing something different. They're taking the court as a top 25 team, okay? Now, we've talked about the old ranked versus unranked theory. Bryan mentioned it in his segment several different times. And this has been an angle that I have looked at in all sports since I was knee-high to a grasshopper back in the day. It's one of the first things they did. Why? Because the people that make the polls or set the rankings, you know what, Joe? They don't bet, okay? All right. Yeah, they're watching the games just like you and me, but, they don't bet. The people that set the lines in Vegas, they do bet, and they do know what they're doing. And when you've got a team that's not ranked versus a team that's ranked, and their favorite, I am going to pay close attention to that. I'll always side up on the side of the bookmakers rather than the guys just setting the polls for you. So that starts us out on this one. Now, as I said, they take the court as a top 25 team. Can you remember the last time South Florida was a top 25 team in college basketball? I can't. And, that's going back a long time. So it is something new for them, and it puts another bullseye on their back. Now, we look at Charlotte, and they have lost back-to-back games. They were both on the road. And the first one on the road was at Memphis, who actually is playing some good basketball right now, their last few games. Then they did lose to Tulsa. Was that a case of losing the same game twice? Good chance. But you know what? They are returning back home, playing the first place team. So obviously you're going to get a big effort from them, playing a top 25 team coming into their building. That's a big deal. But you know what's an even bigger deal? Charlotte at home against the spread. Charlotte 10-2 against the spread this season at home. And I mentioned them coming off the road back home. Well, the last two seasons in that spot, no matter whether their favorite dog, whatever, they're 9-1 against the spread. The last two seasons, that first game back at home after playing on the road the previous game. You know what? South Florida, you got one more chance to stick it to me. I'm taking Charlotte. I'm laying the points here today. I look for them to get the job done. And South Florida, I hope you enjoyed your week in the top 25, because you'll bounce back out when the new rankings come out.
Yeah, well, you certainly have. I mean, Charles, like you said, back-to-back road losses, but they've had some time to get ready for this game here, and that usually spells danger when a team has got that much time to get ready to knock you down here. But it's been a hell of a run for South Florida, but Marco thinks it's going to be ending here today. All right, Marco, we got a bunch of questions on, looks like a lot of top 25 games here across the board. We'll start with a top 10 team here in Iowa State taking on the UCF Knights in this one here. And UCF, nice win against Oklahoma State there last time out. Yeah, thanks so much for that. But we all know Iowa State is a team that certainly you want to bet on when they are home. But Orlando's a long way away from the cornfields of Ames there, Mark. I'm just telling you right now. So the question is, how many points will be scored in this game? Because it doesn't feel like there's going to be a whole lot of points in this one. But it also seems to be maybe a low number, 3.5, somewhere in that ballpark. I guess this all comes down to whether or not you trust Iowa State on the road, or I know a lot of people that feel maybe they're a little bit overvalued coming into this one here. What do you think the Cyclones are? I mean, they're a top 10 team here, Marco, but UCF covers a lot of games, and they have for backers all year long.
Well, Joe, this is one of those games where I've talked about Central Florida, where I've backed them in certain spots all year long, and I've cashed some nice tickets with them. And where I've cashed the tickets where I like them, where they're at today playing at home. This is an unnatural road game for these Big 12 teams. Central Florida and Houston joined the Big 12 this year, and the first time these teams make that trip to sunny Florida in wintertime, a little bit of a distraction. It's not an easy road trip geographically, and I think teams are getting ambushed, and I think that's what's going to happen today to Iowa State. It's also a bad spot for Iowa State. I was actually on them earlier in the week when they played Oklahoma. Why? Oklahoma was in a bad scheduling spot, and going to Iowa State, which we know Iowa State, as you said, a top 25 team playing well, especially at home. But it was also for Iowa State last chance to kick Oklahoma in the backside as they're walking out the door of the Big 12. These teams that face Oklahoma and Texas the last time in their building as a Big 12 opponent, I think is a little added motivation. So you know me, maybe a little fat and sassy. That win was a little satisfying midweek against Oklahoma. I know it was satisfying for me walking to the window, cashing the ticket, but I'm all about fading them today. I think Central Florida gets the job done.
Oh, like in UCF to get it done. And both those teams have made folks an awful lot of money this year. They have been covering machines as well. Let's talk about, we'll go a little bit better here. How about the number 2 team in the country with Purdue at home taking on none other than Coach Izzo and Michigan State, who I believe, Marco, this is 25 straight NCAA appearances. It's the 3rd longest in history for Michigan State. But that disgusting loss last against Ohio State just absolutely infuriates me. The team can go 3 for 18 and somehow still beat you. And it's been back-to-back losses for them. It's they could be okay, Michigan State, as far as an at-large bid goes, but you got to be kidding me here. You got to win some games. You should have won Ohio State, but now all of a sudden, what? You've got to beat Purdue at Purdue in Lafayette? I mean, seems like a huge number here, though, with double digits, 10 and a half I'm seeing for Purdue. But is Michigan State in trouble in your mind?
Oh, the Ohio State loss absolutely was not good for the resume. But, did they get caught looking ahead? Okay. You got Purdue coming in here. Purdue's been, one of the, top 3 teams basically all season long. And did they look there? They lost at Iowa. Then they come back home, thinking that they just had to show up and they win the game. I think that's maybe a possibility. But you talk about Michigan State and all that run to all those tournaments. Well, you know what? Tom Izzo teams, it's the same thing every year. And generally speaking, which now losing the last 2 games is uncharacteristic of this team, they struggle a little bit early in the season because Izzo is not scared to put tough opponents on the schedule. And generally they start with a mediocre record. But what that does, rather than playing little sisters of the poor like so many of these other teams do and pad their resume with meaningless wins, they get their team tournament tested, toughen them up, play the better teams. And if you look at who they played in the beginning of the season, it was a who's who in college basketball, and that should serve them well pressure-wise here against Purdue. Yeah, we know Purdue's got, everything. They're going to be a top seed, one of the best teams in the country. But I just think this number is a little bit too high. Do I get to the window on this one? Probably not today, because that Ohio State loss is a little bit alarming. But I'm not going to lay the points with I would take Michigan State past this game. I think Michigan State's going to try to slow things down and get it into a half-court game with Purdue. And if they can hang early, they can keep this one right down to the wire. Let's take Michigan State plus the points.
Yeah, this feels like the kind of game Michigan State's going to make it pretty much uncomfortable there for Purdue, who, by the way, I believe with a win today can at least clinch a tie for the Big Ten, the Big Ten regular season there. So there is certainly a lot at stake for him here. We also have a question coming in. By the way, let me go to, was it Gonzo24 there on Instagram? Wanted to know, Marco, Charlotte now, is that past the point of any return? Still worth a stab in your mind there against South Florida?
Yeah, once you get past 4, I got to leave the game alone. Now you're talking about another possession, and I don't like it. You got to get to 5 to win. So 4 is the limit for me on it. Pass. If you want to still get Charlotte action and you lost that, 3.5, 4, and there's another team that you like today, I would say, hey, maybe hook it up on a money line parlay and just ask Charlotte to win the game. That eliminates losing a number in a game, if you still want to make a play on the side.
Yeah. And listen, wait till the game starts. Hopefully South Florida opens up on a little bit of run. You'll be able to get Charlotte at a much better number than what the 4.5 is right now. Not a bad way to go there. So good luck there, Gonzo24 on Instagram. We appreciate you hanging with us. And again, guys, any questions you have on any of these games coming up today, drop them in the chat room. And while you're there, hit that subscribe button. If you're joining us for the first time, hit that thumbs up. Give us a like. We'd certainly appreciate it. Ronald Cabang, Mr. RC, coming up here. NBA action. He's got a couple of plays for you he's going to break down coming up a little bit later. So any NBA games, go ahead and drop them in the chat as well. Marco, we'll head to the Big 12 here. We'll get a couple of more of these in as Kansas State kind of, I guess, holding on by with a wing and a prayer here. But, Cincinnati, too, looked so good and promising a month ago, and then the reality of them not being in the American Athletic Conference anymore kind of sank in, and they're like, oh boy, this is a different brand of basketball. So this is huge for both these teams here, certainly for Kansas State and Coach Tang there. I know somewhere Kelly Stewart is probably screaming and yelling secretly betting Kansas State in this game. But I'm wondering here, 6.5, Marco, 6.5. How would you approach this game? Total-wise, maybe a side? What would you look at here?
Now, I lean to a side here, and hopefully Kelly's not watching the show because I'm going to be in hot water. I'm fading Kansas State in this spot here. The situation for Kansas State, just like, we talked about with Central Florida, these newcomers to the Big 12 coming in here, Cincinnati, Central Florida, Houston. This is not a natural road trip for them, going to Cincinnati for the first time. And I'm also look at the schedule. Look who Kansas State has on deck. They're coming off a high-scoring win, one of those, 94-90. So you're looking at a team that just scored 94 points and they're getting 6.5 points here. That looks pretty attractive on the surface. But I can't do it because I'm looking at who they got on deck. Yeah, that was a satisfying win. They didn't cover that game against West Virginia, but they were coming off back-to-back wins. They beat BYU in the game before that. Kansas is on deck for Kansas State, and we know that is a game every year. They circle two of them on the calendar. It's the home game against Kansas and the road game against Kansas. So this is just a horrible look-ahead spot for Kansas State after coming off a uncharacteristic high-scoring game. Game went into overtime to get it to that number. But still, I'm going to fade them here. I like Cincinnati at home. In this one, looks like a lot of points on the surface, but Cincinnati has surprised some teams at home this year. I'll go ahead and take them. And the teams that are beating them up, Cincinnati too, have also been the upper echelon of the Big 12. I don't put Kansas State anywhere near that this season. Sorry, Kelly. They're too inconsistent. Give me Cincinnati. I'll lay the points with them here for my play in the Big 12.
All right. Well, there you go. Sorry, Kelly. But yes, even she secretly deep down knows what kind of disaster of a season this has been for Kansas State here. But plenty going on across the board. Again, over 130 games coming up here tonight. One more, Marco, before we get you out of here. Tell me how do you lie on this whole Gonzaga thing? Half the people I talk to think Gonzaga's undervalued. The other half think that this is no way, shape, or form going to be anything like what the success of Gonzaga has been in years past. I mean, they're still in the Western Conference, right? So they still just win. If they win against Saint Mary's, they're in. I mean, you got to be in it to win it, right? But St. Mary's has always been a roadblock for them, and they got them again here tonight as they wind it down. Can the Zags get past St. Mary's tonight? Do you even believe in this Gonzaga team? Do you think this Zags team is being a little overlooked in the marketplace?
Well, first of all the experts with the brackets and saying that this is a team on a bubble and they're on the outside looking in, got to, win this game. Yeah, I get that winning this game would lock them up for a bid, but do you look at who they've played this season out of conference? Okay, I don't know how you don't put this team in the consideration that they deserve a bid. We know what they've done in the past, and I hate to say it, but the committee, they do weigh a little bit of that in there. A team that's got pedigree, sometime that's on the border. The problem is the conference that they play in the fact that generally it's two teams in the rest of the conference. Well, it's BYU's not in that conference anymore. They were generally a decent, 3 or 4 third in that conference. Santa Clara's a step down. San Francisco's probably the third best team overall, but they have some flaws as well. That's what's hurting them. But this St. Mary's team, I got to tell you, Joe, I think this team is really good. And, man, when it comes to defense, they play some lockdown defense. Now, I get Gonzaga needs to win this game, and I am seeing a lot of people wanting to take them, and I think you're actually getting cheated on the number. If you like St. Mary's, I think there's value with them because of the pedigree of Gonzaga and that all that bubble talk that you've been hearing for the past week and Gonzaga needing to win the game. But we always say it, that if you need to win a game at the end of the season, it's because maybe you didn't play that well all season long. And I'm not really saying that about Gonzaga because actually they're playing their best ball at the right time at the end of the season. They started the season. They had to turn over some players. You knew this was going to be a different look for Gonzaga, and they played that tough schedule at the beginning of the year. I mean, you had Purdue on your schedule. You had UCLA before we knew what they were going to be. Syracuse wasn't a walkover. You're playing, a decent team out of the ACC. Tough schedule. USC on there. They played Washington, which is a rivalry game. San Diego State that went to, the championship game last year. I'm going to go St. Mary's in this one. I like this team just because I am going to fade this, call it the contrarian play. I hear too many people taking Gonzaga just because of the need factor. St. Mary's is playing with house money. I know they beat them at Gonzaga. It was a tight game, but St. Mary's finally has a chance to be the top dog in this conference. I think they won it. Send the message. They have no pressure on them. St. Mary's for me or pass.
Love it, Marco. Love it. All right, plenty of college hoops games, guys, available to you. So we also, of course, Marco, a few other sports going on around the landscape here, NBA action, NHL. Tell the folks what you got locked and loaded here today for this weekend.
Well, guys, I got loaded right now. My 4% play for today, it is my Mountain West Conference game of the week. And Joe, the 4% plays have been on an absolute tear. 5% is 2 for basketball, but I've only had one of them. Okay. I don't, throw out big plays every day. 4%, generally I isolate, one game that stands out on the card. And these plays have been absolute money. We're on a 9-2 run. We've had another underdog win outright by double digits last night with Ryder. The night before, we had Cal State Bakersfield. It's just been on and on with these plays that we're coming up with. 27-9 on those 4% plays the last 36. But, guys, it's not just the 4% plays. Over the last 2 years, Joe, my college and NBA basketball, we've been on a 2-year run. We're up over 200 units the last 2 seasons, college and pro combined. Big card for Saturday. You can pick up the one game for $25, or you can grab an one-day all-access pass, get everything I have today for just $14 more. Or if you just want to get all of my college plays through the March Madness, through the championship game, as Brian said earlier, we've got the March Madness special going right now for $149. So jump on board. And we also got some horse action coming here the next month, Joe. You know what's coming. We've got the road to the Triple Crown, to the Kentucky Derby. So jump on board at, maybe a 7:30 day all access. I do have a special up on my site, on my page. You can pick up a 90-day package. Normally $849 for $649. Use MD649. We'll get you that package, that 90-day special, which includes every play, all sports.
Love it. Marco D'Angelo. See, that wasn't so bad there, Marco. First call. You had to get up at the crack of dawn here out west, but we appreciate you taking the time as always, my man. Crush it later today, and make sure you visit Marco D'Angelo over at WagerTalk.com. Great opportunity to partner up with him today throughout March Madness. And I'll tell you now, our next guest here, if the NBA is what you like, then the NBA is what you get here with RC in the house. Ronald Cabang ready to roll here. And RC, listen, we got 136 college basketball games. We got 6 in the NBA. But I can tell you, I like some of these games in the NBA here today. I think some folks might be overlooking the card here today. But they shouldn't, because value is value here, and sometimes 136 games just screws you up. So let's start and dive in with one game right off the bat that I saw some interesting movement already here this morning with the Hawks taking on the Brooklyn Nets. And it looked like this line flipped, and it looks like the total is also getting steamed here. I'm seeing now 219 and a half. From about 221, 221 and a half. But I looked at this last night. Nets -1, 1.5. Now they're getting that. So what gives with this matchup here today?
Yeah, I mean, to be transparent, I did give this out to clients last night at the plus 2, I believe. So, it pays to really be able to work with cappers like us who see the line early and are able to get that closing line value that a lot of people look for. But yeah, a couple of the things that really came out to me. Obviously, these two teams just played on Thursday. Nets smashed the Hawks 124-97. Two things that I saw really were just unexpected from my standpoint. The Hawks shot just 43% from the field, 8 of 28. That's 29% from the three. And the Nets, they're typically not a great defensive team, but I expected the Hawks to do a little bit better than that, in my opinion. So I expect a little bit of a bounce back there. On the opposite side of the ball, the Nets shot 51% from the field, including 22 out of 46 from three. That's definitely something that I don't expect from them to replicate again. Obviously, the Hawks don't have a great defense either, but I do expect the Nets to come back down to earth, especially from three. They normally shoot 37% from three. That's a huge gap between their normal rate versus what they shot on Thursday. Going into this one, obviously, Trae Young is still out for the Hawks. Cam Thomas is out for the Nets. Ben Simmons, game time decision. So, things that we already expected coming into this game here. But these two teams are playing in consecutive games. That's one thing that I looked at. How do they adjust after playing the same team in two consecutive games? This season, this is only the second time the Hawks have done it. And the first time they played the Raptors, they ended up winning and covering the second game. On the Nets side, this is the third instance, and they've yet to cover a game playing the same team in consecutive games. So they're 0-2 ATS when playing the same team twice. I think that the Hawks, I think they do make the necessary adjustments to bounce back strong here. Like I mentioned earlier, I think the Nets are going to struggle offensively, but I think there's going to be a couple other aspects of the game where the Hawks might take advantage of them. From the free throw line is one of them. The Hawks, they went to the free throw line 21 times. The Nets went to the line 13 times. That's something that I do see again here. The last 5 games, the Hawks are sending opponents to the free throw line at the lowest rate, while the Nets are sending opponents to the free throw line at the 29th highest, at the 29th rate, which means second highest rate basically. And then the Nets, they don't go to the free throw line in general because they shoot so many 3-pointers. And recently the Hawks, they've been doing really well at forcing turnovers as well. I think that has to go with kind of aligned with Trae Young, right? He's not much known as a defender here, so without him in the lineup, their focus is more so on the defensive side of the ball. They're 6th in the league in the last 5 games in opponent turnover rate. So that's one thing that I could see here is forcing turnovers from the Hawks side, getting to the free throw line consistently, and then the Nets not shooting as great from the three. My model also has it. It's actually pretty close to the line now, but my model has the Hawks winning 113-111. That's the reason why I took the Hawks +2. Obviously, at 1.5 here as favorites, it gets pretty tight, but I do think that this is a Hawks spot here.
All right, liking the Hawks to get it done here in game number 2. Interesting scheduling spot, like you said there. Don't forget, guys, 6 games in the NBA. If you have any questions about these games, drop them in the chat room there, no matter what platform you are on. We appreciate you taking the time to hang out with us here on Last Call, and hit that subscribe button and become part of the Wager Talk TV family, as we are going to talk a little Miami Heat here. My Heat RC, hell of a successful West Coast road trip. And if they didn't sleepwalk through the first quarter in that game against Denver, there might have been a different outcome, as Jamal Murray ended up going down, and the Heat made a valiant comeback there. But they are home, and they get to take on everyone's lovable losers here, the Utah Jazz, in this one here. So what do we do? Because it's always a question of injury report, right? So I'm still seeing Caleb Martin questionable, Tyler Hero questionable, Kevin Love questionable. But really, the whole pure definition of next man up is the Miami Heat. That is what Heat culture is. And quite honestly, are you backing Utah to cover anything? Because they've actually burned money legit for, I mean, I think they just set it on fire and just being like, woo, thanks for betting on us. Here it is. I'm burning it. What do we do here with this Utah-Miami game today? Now 7.5.
Yeah, no, I definitely like the Heat here in this spot. A lot of it is current form and matchup. I know from a spot perspective, coming from a Western Conference road trip, first game home in the East for the Miami Heat, that's typically a fade spot, right? But like I said, current form and matchup, it all really points towards the Heat here. The Jazz, they've just been struggling recently. They lost and failed to cover in 7 of their last 8 games. They really struggle on both sides of the ball too. 22nd in offensive rating, pretty much tied for last in defensive rating during that 8-game span there. And then on the Heat side, they've been hot. Like you mentioned, they did really well in that Western Conference road trip, even before that too as well. They've covered 9 straight games now, winning 7 of them outright. It's mainly their defense that has put them in this position, and they've been doing it with whoever they have on the roster, right? Who's available, like you said, that next man up mentality there in Miami. They've kept 12 straight opponents under their team total, and the last time I saw that a team has gone over their team total against the Heat was in January 29th. It was the Suns I believe possibly in Miami. Can't remember exactly where it was, but it's been over a month there now. From a injury perspective, like you said, Tyler Hero, Love, Highsmith, Martin, all questionable. Josh Richardson is out, but like I said, that whole next man up mentality just goes to show how much Coach Spo has, is probably one of the best coaches, if not the best coach in the league, as far as bringing out the best out of the players that he has available. Like I said, recent form, if we look at last 10 games, Heat number 1 in defensive rating, the Jazz 27th in that same 10-game span. If we look at ways the Jazz have been successful offensively in the last 10 games, 6th in the league in average points off turnovers, right? Also 8th in the league in fast break points per game. Well, defensively, the Heat got them covered in both of those aspects. Fourth best in limiting opponents' points off turnovers, 3rd best in at limiting opponents' fast break points per game as well. So, and another thing about the Jazz, they shoot a lot of 3-pointers, right? If you look at last 10 games, 5th in the league in percentage of field goal attempts from the 3, and 8th in the league in percentage of points from 3-pointers. So they rely heavily on that long ball. But the Heat, once again, their defense, Heat are 4th best 3-point defense, allowing opponents to shoot just 33.7% from the 3 in the last 10 games. So current form for both teams from a side perspective, all point towards the Heat. Matchup points towards the Heat. This is really just a very bad matchup overall for the Jazz here. That's in bad form. To me, the Heat -7, -7.5. I can see them winning this one by double digits. The only thing that people can probably say the Jazz have for them is that scheduling spot, but I think current form and matchup is definitely on the Heat side here.
I agree with you 100%. As long as I got Adebayo and Butler on the court, I'm good with Miami. And certainly
J, man,
from
I think, Joe, Triple J, he's the new Triple J in my opinion. I think he, from an impact perspective to a team, he should be Rookie of the Year, right? Everyone expects everything from Wemby. Everyone expects everything from Chet. But one guy that came out of nowhere and has done everything that asked for is Triple J from Miami. I think
Yep.
from an impact perspective, there was a period when he was not on the squad. I think it was like a 6-7 game period. They did not win a game or cover
Yep.
within that span. If I'm correct, it's like that. Triple
Yep.
J has been a huge impact for this team.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, there's a lot of different things to make it kind of step back with Miami and go, here we go again. Like
Yeah, peaking at the
it's
right
like,
time.
here we go again with the Miami Heat. So that's a good game. I know we've got a couple of questions coming in. First, let me ask you from Instagram. I know Mach 1 wanted to know, was there a prop that you liked today in any one of these games that you can share with the guys?
I'm not much of a prop guy at all. Like I don't look at props too much. Last year, props was something that I tried to bring into my tool belt, but it wasn't a successful. It wasn't successful at all. So I stick to the sides and totals for the most part. If anything, I would probably wait to see what happens with Jamal Murray in Denver and see
Mm.
what props come up if he doesn't play. I think that one is a really tricky game here, in my opinion. I think the line has gone back and forth between who is favored. Nuggets favored first, Lakers favored overnight, and then back to Nuggets. I think right now is what I see here. So I think there's a lot of things to look into as far as injury report in that game. Murray, LeBron, and AD all on the injury report. I think we want to see who would be available there if Jamal Murray's out. Look at some of the guys that could step up potentially for the Nuggets.
Well, I mean, it's look, LeBron is absolutely on fire right now too, as well. He's had
Yeah.
at least 28 points in 4 consecutive. And it's not because he's chucking up 9,000 shots. He's actually been really good efficiency wise, too. So he's making his shots count, and they are dropping down here. So opportunity there. I think we got Big Dog joining us here on YouTube. And Big Dog wants to know the unders have been absolutely obnoxious since the All-Star break. We all know it. They're starting to come back here a little bit here. Lakers, Denver, thinking about the under in this one here. And the question is really, what are we going to get? I mean, Denver clearly is interested in taking that number 1 seed. And hey, listen, number 1 seed, if it has to go through Denver to Western Conference, that's advantage Denver by far. But I don't know how far they're willing to push Jamal Murray and a few others. I know KCP is also hurt in this game today. When the Lakers are at their best, they're playing defense. So I don't hate the under in this unless you think we're going to get points, and more points.
Now, first part of their question, I just looked it up here. Unders after the All-Star break, 31.9%. So that's what, 68.1% to the under after the All-Star break here, 49, 23, and 2 to the under. So it's been very profitable to take the under after the All-Star break. I don't know what it could have been. It could be more so, how the refs are managing these games here, or just teams really focusing in on the defense and where they rank in the playoffs. But I can only look towards the under in that game as well. I mean, like I said, I think for this game specifically, Jamal Murray is going to be a key factor here. I mean, on the season, the Nuggets have been a very slow-paced team. But if you look at the last 8 games, they've been going a little bit quicker. And for the most part, one thing that I've seen with the Nuggets, or one thing that from the Nuggets perspective, is I still don't trust them offensively. I know out the gate, out of the All-Star break, they went over their team total 3 times, but they played the Wizards, the Blazers, and then they played the Warriors on the 3rd game in 4 nights. So that was a bad spot for them. That was their only loss after the All-Star break for the Warriors too. They've been pretty hot as well. And then after those 3 games, they've gone under their team total against teams like the Kings, obviously who are not known for their defense. And then prior to the All-Star break, they went under their team total in 11 of 13 going into the All-Star break. So right now, I think they caught teams in bad spots and caught, bad defensive teams after the break, and people expected them that, their offense just flipped. I don't think that's the case. I think their defense still struggles here. So the only way that I could look is to the under in this one from a total perspective.
All right, well, there you go here, guys. 6 games in the association here. We also have one coming in from Jonesy. We'll touch base on this Rockets game here. And the Rockets, yes, definitely not a team you want to bet on the road here. Atrocious is being nice, Jonesy. But this is a big number. And Phoenix, we just watched this game, didn't we, a couple of days ago, I think? We've seen this here. Phoenix isn't great at home. The scheduling spot where these two teams are supposed to play like 3 games, it's just totally weird across the board.
Yeah.
But what are you thinking here? This is a kind of an out of control number for Phoenix to be laying against a Rockets team that, although haven't been great on the road, they still pack a little punch here.
Yeah, I mean, this is a very interesting game here to me. Obviously, so they played each other a few days ago as well. Stayed under the total. Suns won, didn't cover. They're home favorites again. They didn't switch sites or anything like that. One thing that I've seen recently is the Suns' defense have been really good. They've allowed just one team to go over their team total in the last 10 games there. But on the Rockets side, they've stayed under their team total in 8 of their last 9 games. So offensively and defensively, it points towards the Rockets struggling here. A couple things that really catch my eye, though, right, is where the line has shifted and where the total has shifted from the previous game. Because obviously the Suns won by 5. The line shifts from 8 to 10 now.
Yep.
Double-digit favorites after not covering. That's one signal. Then the total goes up after going under by a significant margin. That's another signal. So from a total perspective, I think there's counter narratives there. But from a side perspective, the books are telling us that the Suns is probably going to dominate this game. From a total perspective, I would say look towards the Rockets to struggle. Maybe look towards their team total under, or just take the Suns on the spread if you feel comfortable. But typically, what I've seen, when I pull up the database here, home favorites off a win that they didn't cover, and then they're a home favorite again, playing matchups back to back. And this is just not including the playoffs, so this is just regular season only. It's been profitable to back these home favorites once again in the second matchup if they don't cover that first game. So I would definitely lean towards the Suns here to cover that number. And also, I think the books are telling us that's probably the way to go.
Yeah, I agree with you 100% there. Not a bad look here. All right, RC. Again, 6 games in the association here today. Tell the folks what you got locked and loaded, ready to go on your page at WagerTalk.com.
Yeah, so the 2 games that I just talked about there, those are on my premium card. I gave those out to clients last night. I also have one more from a total perspective, and then 2 college basketball games. I'm really very choosy, picky when it comes to college basketball, especially when, like you mentioned, 136 games in a single day. I picked out 2 of them. And, I think on the week I only have, this is my 3rd college basketball game. So very, very picky when it comes to that, really focusing on quality over quantity. One thing to bring up, I actually don't know if this package is still available, but I did have one that was the rest of the NBA, the rest of college basketball, and the full season WNBA. WNBA is coming up really soon here, and I was the number 1 capper last season in the WNBA. So if that package is still available, it should be on the deals page over at WagerTalk. But basketball has been really treating me well, especially after the All-Star break here. We went into the All-Star break profitable. Now we're the number 1 in profit post All-Star break currently over at WagerTalk. So NBA is really treating me well, and then we're heading into March Madness and the WNBA. So whole lot of hoops coming up, man. If that package is still available, I think that one's that one's the one to get.
It's available there, guys. Visit his page, wt.buzz/RC. Ronald Cabang, always a pleasure, brother. Best of luck with the plays here this weekend. Of course, we'll talk to you again during the week. And, well, there you got it. Off and running, 136 college hoops games ready to go here. Again, 6 NBA games. Rattle off. You got a couple of interesting 1 o'clock games coming up here with some line movement. Those of you joining us here real quick on the way out the door. The total continues to crater in Wisconsin and Illinois, down to 151.5 now. So the market believes expect a little more defensive effort, maybe a little less scoring in this one. That opened up at 155.5. Wisconsin still laying 3 right now in the market. And I know a lot of people getting ready for Kansas and Baylor. Baylor took a lot of money overnight. Kansas looks like they're starting to get a little more buyback here before that tips off at 1 o'clock. Total also got a little money. That seems to be ticking down to 144.5. And I would encourage you guys to check out the live odds page at WagerTalk.com for all the latest information on where the market is moving, where the money is going. A lot of great information there with the free live odds page over at WagerTalk.com here. And I think the one game that's going to be a lot of fun to watch, at least it's going to be fun for those that are on Creighton like I am. I think Creighton handles business here in Nebraska there. That line now up to 6.5. Marquette might be in trouble without Kolek here. So I do think Creighton handles their business. And it does. CT Bets telling us McCullough is playing for KU, which would explain why we're getting that last-minute money here on Kansas coming back in. Big shout-out to CT Bets in the house there on Instagram. We appreciate him hanging by and dropping by for that one. And again, 1 o'clock, top of the hour, Big 12, Kansas and Baylor getting ready to go at it. That should be an awful lot of fun. And then a couple of other big games of note coming up. Auburn continuing to get money. That's now a double digit, 10.5, soon to be 11 here is the way it's trending. Opened up as a 9-point favorite at home against Mississippi State. And the money continues to roll in with them. And don't be shocked if West Virginia hangs with Texas Tech at home in Morgantown. It's the only way you can bet West Virginia, and the market agrees. That opened up 3.5 with Texas Tech. And guess what? We're down to 2 here right now with Texas Tech. So some money coming in on the Mountaineers here, there. West Virginia, that game coming up at 6 o'clock tonight. All right, guys, there you go. Maka 1, appreciate it. Oh, Boise State, New Mexico. I know that was a question we had. Give you the latest because that too had some interesting line movement in it. Let me see if I can get that one here for us. I believe. Let me see. Here it is. So the money came in quickly, actually overnight on New Mexico, and it looks like we're down to 3.5 with Boise State. It opened up 4.5. So there is the market seems to be leaning towards New Mexico. Also seems to be leaning towards the under. That is in Boise State, by the way. In New Mexico, well, I'm done losing money backing them. That team cannot be. If you can't win at the pit, how the hell are you going to win on a road? A little bit head scratching there with that team, but that's the latest on that. And again, 136 games, guys. The opportunity to partner up with Marco or Bryan Power or Ronald Cabang. It's waiting for you. It's simple. Just head over to WagerTalk.com. Visit them, guys. Partner up with them, and let's cash a few tickets here on this Saturday. We'll be back again, of course, next Saturday for another edition of Last Call as conference tournaments get ready to go. Lot of college basketball, NBA, NHL, and don't forget Major League Baseball will be here before we know it. We appreciate you hanging across all the platforms. Shout out to Instagram, YouTube Shorts, Facebook, as well as Twitter, and our folks over at YouTube. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't done so. Hit that thumbs up. And make sure that you come back and join us again during the week here on Wager Talk TV. We appreciate the time. Guys, best of luck with all the plays this week, and we'll talk